So Judge Wilken, can I ask you this question about blind spots and whether or not you've seen that, and Justice Klein mentioned it about people appearing before her. Have you experienced that among colleagues or people before you, and what has been your best tactic in terms of addressing that?
I would say it's gotten a lot better over the years, and I think about it a lot, and I wonder if I'm treated differently at all by lawyers, and I think just a little degree I still am. I think that male lawyers tend to talk over me, tend to interrupt me, and I have to try a little harder. I think maybe my former law clerk, Linda Joy, will tell me if that's true or not, but I think it is. I think it is still. I mean, lawyers know that they want to make me happy, and they sort of try to do that, but I think some of the kind of societal attitudes still kick in, and that there is a little bit different treatment by lawyers of me and of women judges. I think that's certainly true for women lawyers, more so, and still is. And I think it's this sort of the thing that still happens. If it's a man, he's aggressive. If it's a woman, she's bossy. If it's a man, they're having a hard-fought battle. If it's a woman, they're having a cat fight. You know, that sort of thing I think still happens, and I do think when I try to figure out why is it that there aren't more women in the lead counsel role, women partners, women taking the lead in the cases, that's the thing that still really comes to me, is a sort of societal blind spot, shall we say, or the phrase that's used now is societal implicit bias, that people, they don't necessarily know they're doing it or think they're doing it, but that's what comes to their minds. And I think that's still true.
Do you have anything to add, Justice Cantil-Sakauye? I see you shaking your
I
head.
agree with all the comments made thus far. I will say when I was a prosecutor, I was sugar, I was honey, and frankly, if he was going to rule in my objection, go for it. You know, and in time, I completely identify with the male attorney interrupting. And so when I became a judge, I disallowed that interrupting. And I said, and I made it clear in the court rules of my court that there would be no interrupting. Say your part and then be quiet. And then I learned that they would then interrupt me. And I would go off record at that point, and I would ask my court reporter to stop. And I'd call the attorney up to the bench, and I'd say, I am not your wife. So here we go. And we would have those kinds of sidebar conferences, go back. And then I would also say, if you talk at the same time I talk, my court reporter, she's trained to only take me. So if you would like a record for appeal, you will not talk over me. And so eventually it took a strong hand, but I will say pretty soon, lawyers were asking for my court because they liked the ground rules. And it is about setting behavior and changing attitudes. And of course now, at the Court of Appeal, less so, because we're when you have three judges, it's just going to naturally be more overlap. And the same is true at the Supreme Court. And of course, as chief, everyone's on their best behavior. Yeah. I realize that. So it's less so at this level.
I will say, fairly recently, I sat on a panel of a Court of Appeals, which shall remain nameless, with myself, another woman, and a male judge who was the chief. And he actually said, Judge so-and-so, they didn't come here to hear you. She was, asking a lot of questions and not outside of the normal range of what someone would do. And this person said, these people didn't come here to hear you. They came to hear the lawyers. So stop asking so many questions. It was pretty remarkable, and not that long ago.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Having been a trial lawyer for many years, I've seen it all myself. So, including being, doing the polling of the jury after a trial, and all they want to talk about is what I wore at trial.
They do talk about the ties also.
Oh, they do? Okay. I should have worn some ties. So, I want to, push this question a little bit in terms of why diversity of women leadership matters, and some of you touched on this. But I think I, along with so many people in this room, are really concerned that women aren't really doing well in terms of equity partnerships in firms. There's a lot of recent data showing that the number of female associates at firms is plummeting. So, in light of this and in light of the defense offered by many, it doesn't matter what industry we're working in, from the trades to academia to law, that there's this pipeline defense, right? There's just not enough women that are interested and qualified to be in the judiciary. I want to be blunt. How can women on the bench influence the pipeline? How can they advance the stature of women in the profession from the bench? I think that there's a lot of young women lawyers that'd be surprised to know the many ways that being recognized by a judge for what they do and appointments, et cetera, are ways that their stature can be elevated in their firms and practices.
Well, I would first say, if there aren't enough, if the defense is there aren't enough folks in the pipeline, then I would say then we need to work on that. I don't think that I think there are sufficient numbers in the pipeline, and I think that we should work to create more if there's a perception that there are not. And we do that by reaching out, and we do that by encouraging appointments and encouraging women and minority attorneys to actually put themselves out there. And so I would encourage, at least for those who are interested in serving on statewide committees for the judiciary, that it's a matter of watching the homepage and filling out the application and putting in and telling me, as those applications are reviewed, that you put in and that you are a new attorney or that you are in this area and you'd like to be appointed, because we're always looking for diversity of representation for all the reasons that Chief Judge Wilken said, not only for the points of view, as Justice Klein said, but because of the fact that having diverse folks on a committee educates the other folks on the committee and educates them beyond, and it's really a ripple effect. So it's a matter of putting yourself out there, making the application. It's also a matter of, if you think that it's going to get lost in the shuffle, calling, sending an email, letting someone know that you put in that application. But it is about putting yourself out there and seeing yourself in that position. And I encourage you to do so. I have a sticker that I put on my daughter's side of the bathroom mirror, and it said, do one thing every day that scares you. Mm-hmm. I think you need to put yourself out there and be surprised by all the good things that come your way when you decide to be brave and do something outside your comfort zone.
An esteemed leader of a bar association told me that she knows of men that would throw their grandmother down an elevator shaft to get those appointments. And that women should be doing it more, should be really thinking about that in terms of pipeline.
Well, I think women judges do try very, very hard to make sure that all those opportunities do go to women and people of color. Mm-hmm. So, but it's true there sometimes aren't as many at certain levels when you're looking for the partners in the firms and the lead counsel at the trials and so on. We're still not there. Right. And I don't exactly know why, although I really think it has to do with cultural attitudes towards child rearing. I just don't think we've gotten beyond that.
Well, yes, that is obviously a factor, but the bottom line factor, folks, is the buck. Let's face it. What are the odds of women being able to compete with male attorneys in major law firms that are representing major clients with major money problems? And that's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. They, big-time business entrepreneurs, etc., do not have the confidence in a female as their advisor, as their attorney, as they have with respect to men. And it's just not in the law. You name it. Where is it? Where is that not the situation? We are in a society, we've made a lot of gains, but we're still in a society that is a male-dominated society. And bottom line, law firms are no different, and lawyers are no different, and judges are no different than everybody else in this culture. The bottom line is the buck. And until women show that they can be as straightforward and able to demand, control, and garner the same kind of money that men can, we're going to be treated differently. And you know what? I might say the same thing if I had a big case. I said, where the heck am I going to go to get the best representation I can get to achieve this end? Is it going to be this little lady over here, nice little lady, or is it going to be this hotshot with a major law firm who's got a track record? You want the honesty, that's it.
Well, Justice Klein, can it be self-perpetuating? So in the U.S., there are only 4% of the 200 top U.S. law firms have female firm-wide managing partners, and you have to wonder what message that's sending to their clients if women are not being elevated into those positions. So there are ways to increase the stature of women in firms through positions and appointments that I think matter to clients. And that send a message to clients, and so that's I think that's an important piece of it. I think who gets those positions aren't just the people that are necessarily the most qualified or the proven track record.
That may be, but we are relatively new to the legal profession, and we are relatively new to the judiciary, and it's going to take more time for the three of us, the four of us, to gain the kind of stature where we have the same, what's the word I want, where we demand the same kind of respect and there's a word I'm looking for, but I can't think of it, as our male counterparts. We're just not there. And it's part of the culture, when you're born and you got little boys and little boys are raised differently than little girls are, and the experiences in law school, the experiences when you're first an attorney, they're different. And the culture is such that it makes it very difficult for women to be able to compete on the level you're talking about, for the big bucks and the big jobs and the big appointments. And we are an evolving society. And hopefully, as we continue to rear ourselves, get educated, get more women in upfront positions like in the Congress, and appointments to key positions like are happening, if we keep going in that direction, maybe one of these days we'll be in a position where we're going to be able to compete. And I can answer this question differently, but I can't do it now.
I agree with you about lawyers, but I actually don't agree with you about women judges. I think women judges have really made huge strides. I really do. I think they're very well respected. I think they're in the top positions. We have a conference we go to every year that all the chief judges from all 94 district courts in the United States, and last year when we went, it was about 40% women were the chief judges of the courts. The Supreme Court of the U.S., the Supreme Court of the various states, the judges, and when the judges are in those positions, they do well. They chair committees. They are leaders. I think actually the judiciary is doing pretty well in the status of women. It's the lawyers that aren't as well, in my view.
Established the National Association of Women Judges, and we have a nationwide organization of women judges. And we meet periodically. We just finished our meeting down there in San Diego, and so I'm very aware of what women judges, who they are, what their problems are, what their agenda is, how they're functioning, and I will tell you we got a way to go. That's all. And we're working on it. Well, yeah, I do, because, I'm exposed to that kind of stuff. That's why we put out this organization of women judges, so that we could get together and discuss what the issues are that are confronting us and how we go about resolving them, and how we help somebody in Oklahoma who drew an opponent for an election, and a variety of issues like that all over the United States of America, to say nothing of the problems that the women on an international basis face.
I will say the Conference of Chief Justices, which is the 50 chiefs, and then the 3 chiefs from the 3 territories. When it first started, it was a social group, and it had 2 female chiefs. And when I joined it 4 years ago, it now has 20 female chiefs. And it's far more an advocacy group. The women took it from social group to now advocacy with the ABA and in Congress, and continues to be a pretty strong presence. And I will say in California, the judiciary still has a ways to go. Women are only 33% of our judges. And as far as minority judges, no one minority has yet broken the double-digit percentage point, right? So 8%, I believe, for Black, 6% for Latino Hispanic, and 5% for Asian. And we have a way to go. And I will also say that based on the 2 surveys that the bar has done in recent history, minority or ethnic lawyers or non-white lawyers in California are going down. Now, there hasn't been a recent study, but the most recent study showed that it was on the decrease. So we have ways to go, and yet we have made strides, which is why we need to continue to be advocates.